Um, so yeah, so we're looking at the five. Why is my oh, I know why. Okay, hold on. Hold on, I need to take care of my camera. um, okay, better, much better. Okay, so yeah, so as I was saying, right, we're taking a break from Ruth. I mean, from the goddesses after this. We're going to Ecclesiastes, and I was mentioning that in the Jewish tradition, there's a grouping of five books called the Five Scrolls, which include Ruth, Esther, Song of Songs. These are three goddesses, right? This is the divine feminine. But then also it includes Ecclesiastes and the Book of Lamentations. So can anyone have an idea why the tradition has regrouped these books? What do they have in common? I'm curious. So I have a little idea, but I want to hear a little bit what you guys have to say. No idea? What do Ecclesiastes, Ruth, Esther, Song of Songs, and Lamentations, this is the book by Jeremiah on, Lamentations about the fallen city of Jerusalem. So anybody have an idea what unites these five books? Hmm. Nobody wants to try? I have to give you the answer. Kestenbaum, go ahead. And then
This isn't like a great answer because Song of Songs is definitely an exception to this. But for the most part, God does not take an active role. He's very much behind the scenes. Like in Esther, he's not mentioned. At Esther and Ruth, he's not mentioned at all. Song of Songs, he is mentioned, but not as an active role, just as someone praising him. In this case, Solomon. So too in the book of Ecclesiastes and Lamentations, he's not really playing any active role. He's either being spoken to or spoken about, and it's way more human centered. It's the narrative of the human spirit, human emotions, and God very much takes a backseat to that. So maybe that could be why they're grouped
Oh,
together.
that's good. That's good. Song of Songs also doesn't mention God, right? I mean, of course, the sages have interpreted, the Song of Songs as being a book about the love between God and his people. But when you just read the text, God is not there, right? So I very much, I think your interpretation is right on, right? These are the books where we have what Martin Buber called the eclipse of God, right? God is behind the scenes or absent, right? So I like that. Nice. I think that works. It's not what I was going to say, but it works totally perfect. Delmas, do you have an idea?
Well, Kirsten Brown just already said what I was going to think, but um, yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Okay. Okay, good. Pierre-Antoine, you want to try? You have something else to say?
I, I don't know. I would just say this. I think like because Lamentations just it's kind of like a dark kind of like book. At least to me, it's very heavy. At least like that's what I think. And I think just through the opening of Ruth alone and like the themes that the first chapter specifically deals with, and when you think about like the history of the Moabites, like I think like that all comes rushing through the first chapter, and it deals with like these topics of like death and like grieving and all like bitterness pretty much. And I think that's what could tie in at least Lamentations to the book of Ruth. And like Esther too, it's like she's uprooted and taken to a foreign land that she doesn't know at all, so it's like weird, but that's what I think.
Yeah, good. I mean, we have in the book of Esther a lot of darkness, right? That the Jews are about to be killed. There's about to be a genocide, right? So we do have, and just to continue along your lines, right? Ecclesiastes is also kind of a brooding, dark and brooding book. So, okay, so you're saying more they're united by the kind of darkness which surrounds the characters, right? These
Yeah,
are books that aren't, they're not safe in the embrace of God, like
yeah.
when you live in the land of Israel and you have the temple and everything is
Yeah,
good, right? These characters are kind of the presence of God has departed, right? They're kind of
yeah.
isolated. They're not comfortable in the world. I like that. Yeah, that works good. You guys are so good. Okay, here's what I was thinking. I think these five books are okay. I know I'm saying this over and over again, and I'm like a broken record, but here's what I think unites these five books. I'm gonna venture out and say These 5 books are the feminine books of the Bible. Let me explain. Right? So we have obviously Ruth, Esther, Song of Songs, but Ecclesiastes is a book on wisdom, right? This is the whole book is about wisdom. It's a wrestling, a discussion around the theme of wisdom. And we know, right, in the book of Proverbs, wisdom is personified by what character? Does anybody know what is the gender of wisdom in the ancient world?
I would assume female, just based on what
Yes,
you're saying.
absolutely, right? Not only in Israel, right? So if you look at the book of Proverbs, where wisdom is personified as a woman, calling out, right, to her lovers. And you have this notion of wisdom as a feminine, right, as a woman throughout the ancient Near East, right? In Egypt, you have this. You have this in the Canaanite literature, right? Babylonian. So you have this. So perhaps, right, Ecclesiastes is therefore giving us, and we're going to see this actually in the content. This is not just me fabulating for you right now, right? In the content of the book of Ecclesiastes, we're going to have a very different approach to spirituality, which is very different from what I've been calling the Father's House version of spirituality. We will be entering, with the book of Ecclesiastes, a very feminine approach, right? And remember, Solomon, we should actually talk about Solomon at some point. What a hybrid character he is, right? I don't mean in terms of gender, right? But certainly in terms of the way that he is both a Hebrew, right? And we're going to see in the book of Ecclesiastes, an Egyptian, right? He's married, in fact, to an Egyptian, right? That's his first wife. So Solomon is somebody who's thinking outside the box, right? He is one of the rare writers in the Hebrew Bible who is able to see beyond the walls of Jerusalem, beyond the Father's house. And this is what makes him so intriguing as a character. So I'm going to argue this when we do Ecclesiastes, right? That we have here a feminine path to spirituality, very different from the more authoritarian, rule-based, right, path of the Father's house. More on this later, right? And then, of course, so then after thinking that, I'm like, okay, what about Lamentations? How is it a feminine book? I opened the book. What's the main theme of the book of Lamentations? What is he mourning? Yes, Granik.
Well, I guess the city of Jerusalem is like personified as a woman also.
Exactly. Okay, this is interesting, right? Is Kestenbaum, you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's also probably the best answer, but also there are a lot of themes throughout Lamentations about a mother losing its child, and in the same way that a mother mourns over its babe, so too we're sort of mourning over our lost child, that being the city of Jerusalem.
Excellent, right? So I was just, kind of, reflecting about why these books are brought together, and perhaps these are the 5 feminine books of the Bible, right? Perhaps these are the 5 books that will teach us the path of the mother's house, right? So just food for thought. This is just me thinking by myself in between classes about our content. Okay, now I have to. Let me turn off briefly the video. Let me be right back. I'm really hot in the sweater and I need to change. So okay, I'm back. So, great. So what I want to do before we start today's lecture, I want to go over some concerns that some of you had last time, right? So yeah, a big thank you to those who stayed behind. I was able to kind of go over some of your discomforts with what we were talking about. So a big thank you to, I believe these are the people who stayed behind, right? Staij, Granik, Goldstein, Pierre-Antoine, Alim, Ahmad, right? I think you're the ones, I hope I didn't miss anyone, right? But thank you, because it really got me thinking I need to clarify a few things, right? So about what I mean by seduction. And so let me tell you a little bit, some of the discomfort that our male companionship had about how I was explaining, right? And then I'll talk about how the women in the group felt uncomfortable. And this is excellent, by the way, right? Never hesitate to come to me with your discomforts, so I can tweak, polish, go deeper, right? This is very useful for me, actually. So both Granick and Stajich, right? Discomfort with this notion of seduction as power, right? I was talking about the woman's power, right? And and I realized as I was speaking, so Granick was uncomfortable with the power element, the manipulation element, right? And Stajich made a really good point, right? If you're coming to with the notion of power, right? In other words, with this notion that you can control, right, the other person, this is not love anymore, right? We're leaving the terrain of love. We're somewhere else, right? So I want to talk about this. I want to go deeper into what I mean by power, right? And then some other women were uncomfortable, of course, with this distinction between the two women, right? So the issue that arose was, you know, does a woman have to be extroverted to be seductive? Can she also be introverted, right? Because it seemed like the two women I was describing, one with her hands on her lap, the other one, you know, smiling, kind of. So I want to be clear about that, right? What kind of woman is seductive? Can any woman be seductive, right? Or is there a type, right? So I want to talk about this a little bit. So first of all, right, thank you, right, for this notion of seduction as power. I want to distinguish, and I think I mentioned it, but not clearly enough. There is a seduction that empowers the man, and there's a seduction that disempowers the man, right? And by the way, we will see that it's not one-sided. The man also empowers the woman, right? We saw this with Adam, right? Adam empowered Eve, right? The first thing he does when he receives his mashal is to rename her, right? The mother of the living. He shifts her destiny, right? So we know that the man empowers the woman, right? But here we are seeing that the woman can also empower the man. So we have to see, okay, so let's go deeper, right? So I have distinguished two kinds of seductions. I'm going to write it down. So seduction as aggression and seduction as invitation. This will help us tweak and fine-tune what kind of seduction is present in the book of Ruth that we can emulate as women, right? Okay, seduction as aggression. The agenda is the woman's, right? The woman here is seeking, to a certain degree, to trap the man. And we've all felt this as women, right? We are all tempted to do this at some point. What can I do to influence him, right? To come to me. The agenda is about getting the man. It's nothing more, right? So you're thinking about getting the man and you're strategizing. What can I do to get this man? What can I do to catch him, right? So here, seduction is about trapping the man, right? Touching on his weakness, right? Trying to find his weakness and what's the word? There's a word that's leaving my mind. Basically manipulating his weakness, right? And we know that to a certain degree, if a woman is very attractive, it makes it difficult for the man to resist. So here you are, right? Okay, so there's three ways, right, that I'm gonna describe this type of seduction, which is about trapping the man, right? Into I call it the woman's bottomless well. So we're gonna see that this is a type of seduction rooted in desperation, right? So I'm going to write three things, and then I'm going to contrast. So A, this type of seduction is explicit. B, it is desperate. C, it has a fixed agenda, right? Okay, so let me explain, and then we'll contrast it, right? So first thing, right, when you're seducing in that way, right, and many women fall into this trap, right, of revealing too much, right? We think that we have to go all out, right? And so we reveal too much, whether we reveal too much about ourselves or even about our own bodies, right? This is very explicit. There's no room for mystery. There's no room for discretion, like I call it, or modesty, right? It's all very explicit. You dress in a certain way so that, boom, you create the effect you want right away, right? So this is, a lot of us, right, fall into the trap of thinking we have to do more. what we're going to learn is that true seduction, less is more. We're going to look at that, right? But a lot of us, right, we fall into the trap of thinking more is more, right? We do too much, right? This is what happens when we try too hard. We all know, right? We can all identify the woman who is trying too hard, right? And sometimes we've been that woman, right? So why are you trying so hard? This brings us to the next point, right? Desperation, right? A lot of us, right, when we fall into this aggressive type of seduction, is coming from a place of desperation. Like, I can't be alone anymore. I need a boyfriend. I need to make this happen. Here I go. You're like a warrior now. You're gonna make it happen. So it's coming from a place, a lot of seduction, right? A lot of the seduction we witness is stemming from a place of desperation. I have to have, I need a man to fill that space, right? And so I'm gonna do this, right? And okay, so Serge makes an interesting point in the chat, right? Self-confidence. It depends, right? A woman, yes, seduction, of course, the right type of seduction we're going to talk about stems from self-confidence, but you can also have the attitude of self-confidence, which veils a lack of confidence, right? So we don't want to be misled, right, by the woman acting like she's confident, but actually deep down she's desperate. Okay, and the last thing, right, is the fixed agenda. So the agenda is very clear in the mind of the man, is to get that guy, right? And so in order to do that, she's going to play on his weakness. She knows all the weakness, right? So okay, so this type of seduction, right, we know is about trapping. It's not about empowering, right? And this is the kind of seduction you see often, right? That even we have fallen into at times as women, right? Any questions on this first version of seduction? Okay, so now let's go into the book of Ruth, right? Here we have something else at play, right? With seduction, there is subtle. Second, it's playful or joyful, right? And last point, it's open-ended, right? This is the kind of seduction now that we need to learn to emulate if we want to follow, right, in the footsteps of Ruth. And this is where things will become a bit clearer, right? True seduction is always subtle. It shouldn't, yes, sorry, Pierre-Antoine, yes, thank you. This is a seduction as invitation versus seduction as aggression, right? So this is a different type of seduction. This is not, I mean, this is, first of all, this is subtle. In other words, it shouldn't be evident that you're trying to seduce. Now I'm going to pull out from some of my French background, right? We are the queens of seduction, so they say, in the world, right? So we know, I remember hearing one of my friends when I was living there, she was telling me, when you put on makeup, if someone notices you have makeup on, you did it wrong. You got to put on makeup so that no one notices you're trying to, right? So if you look at the women in France, actually, everything is very subtle, right? They're not going to be all flashy, bright red lipstick. You got to go to Russia for that. It's different, right? So seduction, right? We understand, and I think so does Ruth, right? It has to be subtle. It can't be obvious, right? And so in a way, right, Ruth is subtle when she simply uncovers, right? Then, so in a way she's not too subtle, but but in general, right, she is simply dressed up, smelling good. She's not doing that much, right, in the story. She's so that's the first thing, right? You want to be, and by the way, for it to be subtle, I wanna talk about this a little bit. Means that you never reveal everything at once, right? We talk about this. I think Sosa is mentioning this. Yes, Sosa mentioned this in the chat. When and just to do a little advertisement, right? In my Ethics of Love class, right? We talk about the art of seduction as revealing not everything, just a little bit. You don't want to always reveal everything, whether it's about your emotions or your achievements or your body, right? You want to always keep a little bit hidden. This is where the art of modesty comes in, or discretion, right? Or in the Hebrew, tzniut, right? Modesty that you have in some of these Muslim, Christian, Jewish traditions is not the anti-seduction. Is the backdrop. If you cannot be modest, you cannot reveal a little bit at a time, right? So you want to have a certain amount of modesty, of discretion, right? but you don't want to go too much either, right? You always want to do a little bit of revealing, a little bit of concealing, a little bit of revealing, a little bit of concealing, subtle. Makes sense? Everybody gets this first one? Okay, so that, by the way, any woman can do. It's harder, right? The revealing part is harder for shy women. The concealing part is harder for extroverted women. Both women have to learn this balance, right? If you're very extroverted, it's going to be hard for you to learn to cultivate your mystery, right? But this is important. It's a balance, right, between mystery and revelation. If you're shy, it's going to be a little harder for you to cultivate the revealing, right, of who you are, of your feminine soul or feminine body, right? So that's the first one, right? So you can see that any woman can do this, obviously, and women will struggle on different levels depending on whether they're extroverted or introverted, right? But both will have to learn this. Okay, let me just finish and then I'll get some of your questions. So, second one, instead of coming from desperation, this type of seduction comes from what Stage was saying, confidence, or a kind of a woman's feeling good in her life, right? To really be able to seduce, you have to have moved beyond desperation. As long as you're desperate, there's going to be something off about the way you approach men, right? You have to reach actually a place where you're comfortable with yourself and joyful in your life, and your seduction is stemming from this joy or playfulness, or you're flirting, but you're flirting because you're having fun. You're not flirting because you need somebody tonight, right? It's different, right? So this is the second aspect that we see with Ruth, right? Although there is an amount of desperation in Ruth, right? For sure. But you have this notion, I think with Esther, she does it a little better. I mean, it's emphasized more this element of joyfulness, right? Of being good in yourself. And to be honest, Ruth is not desperate in the sense that she has to have that man. She's doing it for a higher purpose. She is in a way well rooted in herself. She's a strong woman. We know this, right? She's already very anchored in herself. And that's why she's able to take that further step. So this notion of seduction coming from a place of fullness rather than from a place of emptiness, right? Coming from a place of joy, of your joy of life, of your enjoyment of yourself, of your life, rather than a place of desperation, like I have to have that man, right? And finally, this is the most important part, open-ended, right? True seduction, right, is never has a fixed agenda. What's going to happen next? Is never about reining, right? Kind of what do you do? What do you call this? Reeling in, right? It's never about reeling in the guy. It's always about, here's the invitation. You do what you want. Whatever you do, I'm good, right? So you're not trying to grab. You're just inviting, and you're open-ended as to when, how, what, right? You're not trying to make things happen. This is very, very, and Ruth, we're going to see today when we talk about the way that she speaks, right, is actually practicing this, right? So you're always, it's always kind of playful in the sense that you're open to whatever outcome occurs. If he says no, you're like, okay, and you walk away gracefully, right? And so forth. So so are you a little clearer now, ladies and guys, about what I'm talking about here when it comes to the art of seduction, which I think we really need to learn. It's an art in the sense that you have to learn this, right? Some people, they have it natural. It's true, right? Just like some people are great musicians or some people are great thinkers, right? But most of us, we have to really learn this balance, right? We have to learn to cultivate joy. We have to learn to relinquish control, right? This is not easy, right? To be truly seductive in the sense of being inviting, right? Okay, let me get a few of your questions. I'll start with Stage and then Granick. Go ahead.
Well, one thing that you keep mentioning about seduction, it's funny. The thing about it is that both genders can do exactly the same thing, because you're talking about being mysterious and everything. And then going, again, I hate this word, but when it comes to eroticism, for example, I don't want to say it, prostitution,
Okay.
whore. For example, we know Don Juan. I don't know how many people here know Don Juan. The first woman he slept with said that he is better than her husband. I mean, this is something that's not that's I'm trying to figure out the word here. That is not just huh, I can't find the word for it. It's not just the woman's thing. It doesn't pertain solely to the woman.
Sure, sure.
Man also has the ability to that mysterious thing. I mean, you can look into so many times. For example, musicians back in the day. One of the reasons why women were so over Kurt Cobain is because Kurt Cobain never spoke. It was one of those things. Uh, so many other things, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to focus on the mystery part.
Yes.
And with that, of course, when you realize that the mystery part is like that, then it's like almost not a domino effect, like as if you're pulling a string, you're pulling everything out as well. So figures that although men might not use it as much, a man is quite capable of doing
Yes.
exactly the same thing, although this is more of a woman's sport um versus a man thing. I just wanted to bring that out because you
Excellent.
kept
Yeah, very good. Yes, of course, men can also seduce, right? I agree with you. And I love the example of Kurt Cobain, right? He was silent, and therefore all the women, right? He was able to practice this to cultivate the mystery, right? He gave, but only a little, right? This is the idea here of the subtle type of seduction we're talking about. Excellent. Granik, do you want to add?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, thank you for clarifying. That makes it a lot clearer. But yeah, I was mostly gonna ask what Staj was saying, like, is this like applicable, I guess, to both genders? But I guess
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
kind of
So
talked about that.
scientists
So yeah.
responded. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. I mean, it's true that here in the Hebrew Bible in general, you have more the emphasis on the woman doing this. But no, of course, both genders can absolutely be attractive, right? Seductive. But here, the reason I'm teaching this, taking so much time to teach this, is that while the man has been allowed to express himself in this way over the centuries, the woman, in a way, from in many parts of the world, has been repressed on that level, right? There has been a systematic repression of the woman's seductive capabilities, right? In many of, in fact, the three religions we talked about, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, not all through, right? But certain versions of Islam, certain versions of Christianity, certain versions of Judaism do have the effect of telling the woman, don't move. Right? Don't move. Right? Don't do it, right? And do have this kind of effect of in a way, trapping the woman's seductive or natural seductive powers. And that's why I wanted to emphasize, right, that this is an important virtue, right? That I want to call it a virtue, right? This is an important virtue that we as women need to cultivate. Of course, we need to learn how to cultivate it in the right way, right? In order for it to bring this kind of what the sacred marriage brings, right? Which is rejuvenation, empowerment, and so forth, right? We have to understand. So this brings me, in fact, to the lessons that I wanted to get from last time's, right, lecture was, first of all, right, understanding as women the redemptive power of seduction, right? In other words, if we master this art in the right way, we can really forge powerful relationships, right, with the men in our lives, which will lead to powerful redemption of both the man and the woman, right? Which we'll see later when we finish the book of Ruth, how this works, right? So to really understand seduction as a virtue, that's one of the things I wanted to, and in a way to see seduction and woman's seductiveness as something positive instead of something negative, as we have been doing throughout the centuries, right? There's been too much commentary on how the woman is seductive and therefore brings on the downfall of man, right? What I'm trying to do in this class is flip it, is show seduction is a virtue which can empower the man, right? And the woman eventually. And seeing the woman's body not as a place of downfall, but as as a temple, as a crucible for spiritual transformation. And this is another new idea, right, which I didn't talk about too much last time, right? The woman's body for too long has, if you read, right, the commentators, woman's body is seen as a prison, as the cave, as something which is going to pull the man down. Woman's body is seen as belonging to the material world, right, the corrupt material world. This is the interpreters throughout the centuries, influenced by Greek thought. I'm trying to shift away from that view to see the woman's body as a temple or a crucible for spiritual transformation, right? In other words, coming into contact with such a woman is going to create a powerful, redemptive moment, rejuvenative moment for her, for the man, for the world, right? So that's kind of why I spent so much time on this, because of the history behind us, right? Okay, I want to move on to the next part, so we can talk a little bit about her, the words that she speaks, right? This is in the continuation of first the whole seductive atmosphere that she creates, right? Having created this, remember I told you, right? Seduction, when it's coming from a place of love, can open the man's heart, right? This is one of the goals of doing this, right? Again, remember, as long as Ruth didn't bathe, anoint, and dress, Boaz was just a nice guy, friend, family friend, helping out occasionally, right? When she created this, when she shifted the mood, right? This is what I mean. She's being seductive. She's shifting the mood. Something shifts in Boaz, right? This is the key turning point, right? She was able to shift something because of the way she was doing it, right? So in a way, let's remember this, right? That seduction has, in a way, the effect, if it is well done. If it's not well done, it will just open the man's body, right? But if it's well done, it can open the man's heart, right? Which is the hardest part. You know, they talk about the Holy Grail and hidden treasures. I really think they're talking about the heart of man. It's hidden, impossible to reach. As a woman, you have to climb over the Himalayan, right, range in order to get to that heart. I mean, men will be with you, but they will not open their heart, right? I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but it is not easy. Right? The man can be with you doing all the right things, can be, you know, sleeping with you, but to open his heart, that's another story, right? This is one of the most hidden treasures in the cosmos, is the man's heart, honestly. That's my conclusion, right? After all my life living here, right? So to have the ability as a woman to open this heart and to release it, right? To release not only the man's love, but the man's creativity, the man's life-giving properties. This is a great gift, right? That has been given to us as women. And this ability, the opening of the man's heart, you have to shift. You have to shift your approach. You can't just be a loving woman doing nice things for the man for him to open his heart. That's what we're going to learn today. You have to shift into the seductive, inviting, come closer to my body, and in this way that we talked about, right? For the man to begin to, the heart to begin to crack open. Am I making sense so far, or am I talking to, because I can't see you. It's really annoying. Put your hand on the screen if you're following me. Okay, some of you are. Okay. All right. So what we're going to see now, going deeper, is the way that she talks to this man, right? The way that we speak as women can also be very powerful in shifting the man towards us, in opening their hearts, right? And I want to actually make the statement here that the woman's true erotic power actually lies in her desires, right? I want to talk about this notion of the woman's desires. And the reason I want to spend so much time on this whole rest of the class is that we have been taught as women to not desire, but to sacrifice. I don't know, how many of you women have been taught, you shouldn't want this, you should sacrifice yourself for everyone? How many of you are familiar with this approach, right? So we're taught usually as women, your desires don't matter. What matters is the other person, right? Their desires. So as women, we have been taught to serve, right? And to fulfill everybody's desires, not just the man, the child, the mother, the father, the friends. Here we are, a fountain, fulfilling everybody's desires, forgetting our own desires. This is how we are taught. right? And so I want to shift here and show the power of our desires. Olivera, you have a question?
Yes, it's not this idea that we sacrifice ourselves in order to it's not the object of the sacrifice is not to open the man's heart, because I find this idea to open the man's heart is the fundamental reason why women usually sacrifice. So you are telling that it's very important to open the man's heart. So I just want to try to understand.
Yes, thank you for that question. Absolutely. As women, we are constantly seeking to open your hearts. You might not know this, but this is our main goal. Right? And the technique we use, which backfires, is we serve you. We fulfill your desires and do and do and do. And the thing that we're going to learn today is that this is not the approach that really, really works to open the man's heart. This will make the man comfortable and happy. He will feel he's at home with his mom, but it's not going to bring him very far in terms of your relationship with him, right? So what we're going to learn actually, and this is the opposite of what we've been taught, is that it is not doing for the man that opens his heart. It is desiring from the man and allowing him to do for you that will really open his heart. Let me explain. What we forget is that the man loves differently from us. The man loves by loving, not by being loved necessarily. In other words, the man truly feels in love when he can do things for you and please you, right? He doesn't truly feel in love when he's just receiving like a child, right? From the mother. Too often we fall into mothering role. Here, eat this. Here, let me clean your things. Here, let me pick up after you. Here, you have something on your shirt. Oh, clean your tooth there, right? So here we are, like the mother, right? And this is in a way this is not going to bring us very far, right? The idea here is to express our desires so that the man can respond to it. When the man responds to our desires, this is the beginning of the opening. Are you seeing what I'm saying, Olivera?
Yes, thank you.
Then I have to check with my men. I have to check with my men. Everything I'm saying, you have to help me, guys, because I'm saying things, but I probably I'm missing part of the story since I'm a woman, right? So feel free to correct or nuance, right? What I'm saying. Kestenbaum, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I'm not sure if this is entirely what you're saying, but I totally have that feeling that pre-COVID, when I was out with like a female friend or just having an experience with the female, like I would always insist that like I would pay or I take the active role, because that I would just feel uncomfortable if somehow she was like being the active role. And maybe that's chauvinistic and maybe that's old fashioned, but I definitely get that idea of it makes men feel good when they're the ones who are sort of protecting or taking control of the situation. And Ruth definitely allows that with Boaz, that he's again that active force and he's the one who's providing, he's the one who's filling in that void. And so it's a very like tactical decision on Ruth's part. It's very manipulative but very spot on.
Excellent, right? In other words, Ruth, what she does is she inspires Boaz's actions towards her. She doesn't go and here, Boaz, do this and this and this, and then we're gonna do that, and then right? She doesn't do that. She asks, and she inspires his action towards her, and it is in acting towards her that his heart is finding joy, right? As Kestenbaum is saying, there is a joy for a man in doing things for you. You might not think this because we're so used to being there's a Spanish word which fits really good. I hope I say it right. The burra, this is a donkey, female donkey carrying everything, right? We're so used to being that, right? And we don't realize that men love by loving, by doing, by taking action, right? Like Kestenbaum is saying, taking action for you is a man loving you. If you're always taking the action, there's no room for his love to come out, right? So that's the first thing, right, that we're learning and that I'm trying to express, right? As a woman, it's harder because I'm not a man, I'm not in that position, right? But what we're learning here is that inspiring a man to act is more powerful than doing things for him. Let me say that again. I'll put it in the chat, right? Inspiring a man to act, put that in there. So inspiring a man's actions towards us, right, is more powerful than doing for him. Are you following me, Olivera? Did you get, are you seeing what we're talking about? Is this,
Thank you. Yeah.
okay, great. Okay, so that's the first thing, right? That we need to understand is the power of our desires, first of all, to awaken the love in the man, right? And this is our goal. We want the man to love us, right? So actually inspiring his action through our desires is a way for us to activate or awaken that love, right? The man is not going to love you if you're bringing him his slippers in the morning and cooking and doing. Of course it's nice, right? Of course we should always also do, right? It's not like we're going to be a doll now and sitting lounging all day long, right? So there is a part of action on our part, but when it comes to inspiring love, we need to learn to express our desires, right? That's the main idea here. Pierre-Antoine, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, like, all right, listening to this is like cool and everything, but like in today's in today's day and age, like a lot of the times, like there's some men who express like they don't want to be like providers in a sense, like they don't want to have that responsibility, or like they don't want to be able to like do all these things. Like sometimes they want the girls to do these things, and like they're saying like, I guess, to challenge like the gender roles and everything, but sometimes they just don't feel like providing. So how would you combat that?
Excellent. So this is not about gender roles, right? In other words, in a couple, the woman could be the main provider, right? She could be the main breadwinner and the man could be doing like an artist or something like that, or his own business, whatever, right? So it's about how you interact on the day-to-day, right? A woman who wakes up and says, babe, I'd love to go on a vacation. And the man is like, okay, let's do it, right? This is not about gender roles. This is about the ability to express whatever desire pops up in your heart, right? And sometimes it is. Sometimes you want the man to provide more, right? But this is not about, oh, the man is the provider and the woman, right, is the child keeper or child bearer, right? This is about simply being attuned as a woman to your heart and expressing. It can be very small desires, right? These are all small ways to awaken the love. It's like saying to your husband or boyfriend, oh, I'd love a massage, right? And then he's like, oh, okay, sure, I can give you. And now you've done not only you got a massage, but you've opened something in his heart, because now he's doing something. So this is beyond gender roles. You can have completely different
Okay.
structure. Makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank
Okay,
you
great.
for clarifying.
Okay, excellent. Sosa, go ahead.
I feel like in regard, because I'm the male here, I feel like it's a good situation of change. If someone is going to be the breadwinner for 20 straight years, or if someone's always going to pay the check for the past 50 years or something, like, to keep the relationship strong and I would say provide good tension, like, this time I'll do this for you, this time I'll do this for you. I feel like it would be good for it to work both ways. I know the old-fashioned way is the woman stays home and the man makes the money, but at the same time, I feel like guys is just like, what, I just want a break.
Yeah.
I want her to do something for me, and I feel like women in the same way is I want him to do something for me. So it works both back and forth.
Right. Again, this has nothing to do with gender roles, right? This is all about being connected as a woman. A woman might not want the man to be the breadwinner. She might be fine with the money she's making, right? So, but what does she want, right? She has to be in tune with her deep desires and then have the courage to express them, knowing, and this is the important part of what I'm saying today, knowing that this is awakening the man towards her, rather than we're afraid of expressing our desires because we feel selfish, because we've been taught not to express desires, but to serve, right? Learning to do this, knowing that you're awakening something in the man's heart each time you do it. And so it has nothing to do with the traditional roles. It's just every woman has a unique set of desires that she has to connect to. Now, let me move on and then I'll get some more questions. What's interesting is that when a woman is attuned to her desires, something else also happens. Two things. Number one, wisdom resides in her desires. In other words, very often, a woman's desires contain an element of wisdom in order to shape the relationship, right? So there is, in fact, in our desires, what we deeply desire, there is something that we sense that needs to shift in the dynamic, in the relationship, for the good of the relationship, right? And so to listen to this desire is actually to listen to our deep intuitive wisdom as women, right? Our wisdom lies in our hearts, not in our heads, right? What we feel we desire is actually the voice of wisdom, right? Our desires, in a way, are indicating directions that we sense the relationship should take, right? It's the vision we hold in these desires. These desires contain actually the vision that we have for the relationship. So, but there's something now, and we see this with Ruth, right? She has a vision for the relationship, right? She's envisioning Boaz, her married, right? This complete new vision, which is in a way a vision which is much more rich than the present reality, right? So our desires often are the how shall I put it? The spokespersons, right, of the deeper vision for life, for the couple, for the family, right? And so to really ignore these desires is to create stagnation in the couple. Let me say that again. I'll write it in the chat, right? To ignore our desires, right, is really to create stagnation in the couple, right? The couple will stay in one place, and we know in life when things stagnate, they eventually die, right? So very often the desires are the fire that keep the relationship moving towards ever higher stages, right? The woman is always sensing through her desires the next stage. She always wants this, she always has this deeper vision of where things should progress, right? And very often this is life-giving to the relationship. It's helping the relationship move from one stage to the other. This lies in the hands of the woman, right? The movement from one stage to the other is in a way locked within our desires. Am I making sense with this so far? Put your hand on the screen if you're following. So now, third thing, this is the most important, right? Our desires also have the power to call the man forth to his higher calling. This is connected, right, to our desires as having a vision, right? Our desires have the power to call forth, and this is what happens with Ruth, right? A man's deeper calling, right? And of course, we'll see that when the man responds, right, he also has that effect on the woman. And we're going to see that. But for now, right, the woman actually, her desires are always desires for who the man could be, right? It's never desires like, it's always, in a way, wanting more for the relationship. And in doing so, calling the man to a higher, or elevating the man to a higher calling, right, in that sense. So let me explain what I mean, right? Ruth opens her mouth, right, to talk to Boaz. What does she say, right? Spread your wings over me. This is what I'm going to comment today. For you are a redeemer. So I'm going to talk about this briefly, this expression, right? First of all, spread your wings. This is interesting. We saw it in the text before. Where? Can anyone tell me? Expression, spread your wings. She's quoting someone. Who is she quoting? Tell me. So this is in, okay, spread your wings. This is in chapter, it's written so small in this Bible. Okay, I'm in chapter 3, clearly. Okay, help me out, guys, if you find it before me. When she tells him, spread your wings, here you are. Okay, so terrible translation. Chapter 3, verse 9. It's translated wrongly. It says, spread your robe, right? It's not what the actual text says. Actual text says, spread your wings. Okay, where did we hear this before? Look at your text. Obviously, this is before chapter 3, verse 9. So can anyone find it? Let's do a treasure hunt. I'm looking too, so I can find it. Let's see who gets it first. This is happening. What she says here in the darkness took place in the day, in the daylight, between her and somebody else. I'm giving you clues. I'm having trouble finding. Ah, here it is. I found it. Nobody found it for real? Chapter 2, verse 12. What do you see? Chapter 2, verse 12. Tell me what you see. Pierre-Antoine.
My version says, may the Lord repay you for what you've done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge.
Okay, very good, right? And in here in chapter 3, verse 9, when she's talking to Boaz, is the same expression, spread your wings over me. So what is she telling him by using the same expression? What does she say? So remember, when he first uses the expression, this is a quote from Boaz. She's quoting back at him, right? He told her at the time when he met her, he said, oh, may you find, recompense, may you find, right, rest under with God, right, under whose wings you have sought refuge. So Boaz is talking about the wings of God who are protecting Ruth, right? Now look what she's doing with his own words. Pierre-Antoine, what is she doing?
She's basically telling him, like, just come and protect me. Like,
Yeah.
pretty much is like she's saying, like, I don't know. I think it could go both ways, but like pretty much what she's saying is like, come and protect me. But I also feel like she's saying like you could come and like confide in me as well. Like at least that's how I interpret it, because we always talk about like this balance between like one or the other in a relationship, and how like it's like a co-dependent relationship. I don't know if that's the correct word, but it's like I think it could go both ways, but it's like Boaz protect me pretty much.
Yeah, so Boaz was saying, oh, may God protect you. And she's now telling him, may you protect me, right? In other words, the role that Boaz gave God, she's asking him to take over, right? In other words, she's calling him to his divine calling. She is awakening the divine masculine in him, to use that expression, right? Just like she's using the divine feminine. She's awakening this part in him, which is much more than who he has been so far, right? So far, he's been nice guy Boaz, right? Now she's saying, you are the redeemer. The term in Hebrew is so powerful. Goel is a term used for redeemer, right? When you read the word Goel in the Bible over and over again, it's talking about God redeeming his people, right? Now she's using technical name of God, right? This is such a powerful desire that she's expressing. She's saying, you said whatever you want God to do it now for me, right? Be the hands of God, be the feet of God, be the body of God towards me. What you want God to do, embody it. That's what she's saying here, right? What you want God to do, embody it yourself, right? This is typical again of what I call diaspora literature, right? Human beings become the ones who express God. They are the ones who bring God into the world. It's no more God intervening from the heavens, right? God is now moving through human agents. We are in this diaspora literature. What Ruth is saying is, may God move through you towards me. What is she doing? She's calling forth in him a destiny which is way bigger than who he was so far. So far, he was just nice guy landowner. Now she's asking him, be like God unto me, right? Be this saving power, be this redemption power, be this redeemer. She is calling him to the next level. Are you seeing what I'm saying? How she's really trying to draw out of him something which was there, but wasn't being expressed. She is moving him from duty to chesed, right? Chesed, remember, this is this undeserved, right? Outrageous, outlandish love, right? This is the kind of love that surpasses the realm of duty. So far, Boaz has only done his duty, right? He's been nice. He allows her to glean. This is Jewish law, nothing special, right? He feeds her. Jewish law. You have to help the widow. You have to help the orphan. This is normal, the stuff he's doing. He's not that great, right? Now she's saying, beyond your duty, chesed, be a redeemer unto me. Are you seeing how she she is calling forth this much higher destiny than has been accustomed to so far, right? Put your hand on the screen if you're following me, right? So here we have an element, and we're going to see, by the way, later, how Boaz redeems her, right? Just like how Boaz, in a way, calls forth or allows her to blossom into something much more than she was so far. So it's mutual. I want to really emphasize the sacred marriage, right? Is not just the woman rejuvenating the man, is the man also rejuvenating the woman. So later Boaz will also release her gifts, release her destiny. But right now she's the one calling it forth through her desires. So this is the last thing, right? The power of our desires to call forth in the man his highest self, his highest destiny. This is why our desires are so important, why we need to be in tune with them. Okay, quick question before I get into Ahmad, and then I'll go into how she asks. Go ahead, Ahmad.
So are you saying that Boaz is, Ruth is experiencing the divine through Boaz, who's acting like a medium?
Yeah, I'm saying that she's awakening a much higher calling than just duty. She's awakening his higher self. She's awakening what I would call the divine masculine. Again, he's not God, right? She's not worshiping him like God, right? Or asking him to be God, but she's asking him, embody God's love towards me. That's what she's saying. We are really in the sacred marriage where, remember, I told you this is a place of encounter with God, right? The sacred marriage is a powerful place of encounter with divine feminine, divine masculine, right? So yes, she's calling forth his divine self, right? This higher self, which resides in him, in all men, right? Aline, go ahead.
I kind of like saw how this connected back to Adam and Eve in a way that their like original sin was not carrying out the sacred marriage and not doing it properly with their problems of communication. And in this way, I like see the word like redemption here, and it feels like they're fulfilling the redemption that was given to Adam and Eve, and also kind of works because they're like the ancestors of Jesus, I believe.
Yes, they are. Yes, absolutely right. So yes, we have here a healing of the failed sacred marriage between Adam and Eve, right? It is a wreck. First sacred marriage was a disaster, right? The woman seductive, but in the wrong way. The man helpless, right? No redemption, hiding behind his wife. So this is a reenactment. And by the way, all of us have the possibility to reenact this drama, right? This is not meant to just be read. This is meant to be experienced, right? Reenactment and healing, right? Really succeeding where our ancestors have failed, right? It's very powerful if we can get to that point, right? Okay, Stage, I want to answer your question, but let me just do a couple more points, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, now the key.
No, it's okay. It's what's called a topic has changed much.
Oh, okay, sorry, Stage.
It's okay.
After class. Okay, now the key here, and this is what I wanted to focus on today, the remaining 20 minutes, is how she asks, right? Because this is where most of us miss the mark as women. There's two ways we miss the mark. One, we disconnect from our desires. So therefore disconnect from our wisdom and disconnect from the power we have to call forth the man. We are losing everything when we disconnect from our desires. This is the first way we fail ourselves. Second way, we express our desires in a demanding, tyrannical, whining, nagging way, in a way that the man will do anything except respond to the desires. We do not know how to speak to the men in our lives. This is the second pitfall we fall into, and where we can learn a lot from Ruth, right? Here's how most of us function. There's two types of women right now in the world. Number one, woman never says a word, never expresses her desires, just always suffering silently, victim. Second woman, not expressing desires, demanding change. And I know y'all have this nice attitude. There's this I love this American, I can't do it, I'm too European, but you know how women, they go and they have this attitude and they will tell you what to do and how to change and what you should be doing. I'm sure you've seen it on TV or in your lives, right? So most of us, when we want to express it, we demand, and we're very, yeah, thank you, Stage, bitchy, right? We do this in a very bitchy way. Like we criticize, we complain, we demand. We're like, how dare you? Why are you such an idiot? Oh, the word we use is immature, right? We use it to the man and about the man, right? Oh, he's so immature. He's so immature, right? And so we have failed in how we express our desires, which is why we are not getting very far, even if we are connected to our desires. So I want to look at 4 ways, this is so important, that she expresses the desire. And I think this is a path that we need to follow as women if we're going to really inspire the men of our lives, right? Number 1, she's not complaining. Let me write this in the chat. Number 1, no complaining, no criticizing, right? If you want change in your relationship, the last thing you should do is to complain and to criticize. This will backfire, it will not work, the man will do the opposite. If you think that complaining or criticizing is going to get you somewhere, forget about it. Nowhere. It brings you nowhere. Expressing your desire is never, you never do anything around here, right? It's never, man, you never give me this, or you never do that, or when are you going to do this, and you're never going to change, and right, this is not the way. Right? Expressing a desire is expressing a desire. I would love have some help. I would love to go on a vacation. I would love, right? You're not complaining, you're not criticizing, you're not, in other words, let me explain this more precisely, you're not starting from a negative view of the man. You are basing your desire on the infinite potential for good. So let me write this down in the chat, right? You are not basing yourself, right, on his poor performance, but rather basing it, so your desire, right, on the infinite potential for good that you sense in him, right? Notice how she starts out. She doesn't say, hi, Boaz, I just wanted to tell you that, I'm a little disappointed with how you've been, just doing the minimum. Like, I really think you can do better, right? Imagine Ruth talking like that. That's not going to get her anywhere. Instead, she opens her mouth and she says, you are a redeemer. This is who you are. This is who I sense that you are, right? You're not this loser that's wrecking everything. You're not this, just bound by duty, narrow-minded man. You're the redeemer, right? This is, I want to stop on that briefly because this is so powerful, right? As women, we have the ability to see both the depths of, we can see both the infinite weakness of the man, but we also have the ability to see the infinite potential for good. And too often we play our cards on the infinite weakness. We perceive their weakest point and we say it to them. And this is just going to make things worse. We let us use our X-rated vision, right? X-ray, not X-rated, X-ray vision, right? To see what we also see, which is the infinite good, and to draw it out, right? Rumi says it beautifully when he says, right, to see the ocean within the water jar, right? This is in his poetry, right? This is the ability, right, to call forth the ocean from the water jar, not just the tepid, stagnant water that is also there, right? So that's the first thing that she does. It's not coming from a vision of his poor performance. It's coming from a vision of the infinite potential for good that exists in him. When you start there, you'll get somewhere, right? Okay, I see a billion questions. So Pierre-Antoine, go ahead.
So, okay, don't take this wrong, but is it like basically stroking the guy's ego on like what you can see to like say your desires to warm him up in a sense?
Let me use a different expression. This is watering the good seeds instead of watering the bad seeds.
Okay.
Stroking the ego is again seeing the guy, oh, fragile ego, he needs to, and it's, you have to be hypocritical and you have to lie about how good he is. No, you're actually seeing it, right?
Okay.
As women, we see it's there. right? The potential
Yeah.
for good is as big as the potential for, being a loser. It's
Okay.
they're both there. So you're not just hypocritically stroking the ego, you're actually shifting your gaze from the poor performance, which exists, it's true,
Yeah.
the infinite potential for good, and it exists. It is actually objectively there, right? If you're seeing
Okay.
it, it's there. Makes
Okay. Thank you.
sense. I would use different expressions. Taish, do you have a up-to-date comment?
Well, I was actually going to bring something out now. I want to shift a little the narrative there.
Let's not, because I only have 5 minutes to finish my other 3 points.
Well, okay, maybe I'll say it for later. I just wanted to say, I wanted to say that it was also her kindness must, what's it called? Boaz needed wisdom in order to accept her kindness. If Boaz was a dumb, stupid man, he could have thrown her away.
Yeah.
But Boaz, with his wisdom, accepted the kindness that a woman gave from
Yes.
her heart. It was,
Yes.
it wasn't. I keep pushing that it wasn't just a woman. I see that it's both women and men. It's yin and yang type of thing. I just wanted to say that, and
yeah, thank you. No, I am emphasizing the woman's role. Obviously, I haven't talked about his seduction, right? The way that he seduces her. I will talk more about him though in the next chapter, right? When we talk about his response. So I'm getting there, right? Right now it's true. I'm hyper focusing on the woman because of the agenda I have, but we'll get to his activity. It's coming. It's coming. I know we're moving slowly. Okay, second thing. I do want to finish. I might stay a little bit longer. Second thing. She does not express an expectation. This is not an expectation. In other words, too often as women, we think that we have certain rights. Let me break your bubble. There are no rights in relationships. There is only grace, right? No, you have nobody, right? You can have, how do I put it? There is no one in this world that you can trap in an expectation, right? The love is always a grace. It's never a right. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, you can have rights in terms of don't kill me, don't hit me, right? Right? We do have certain rights in a relationship, don't steal from me, but love is not a right. Love is a grace, right? And so, let me make sure everyone's muted. Yeah. So when we come and we ask, right, in order to awaken the man's heart, we can't say, yeah, you need to love me. You need to love me better. Or you need to commit to me. Or you need to spend more damn time with me, right? You can't do this, right? You can't come and be like, yeah, you owe this to me. Of course, he owes respect. He owes, he can't endanger your life. These are your rights. But love is not anything that you can, wait, I'm trying to like mute everyone and, oh yeah, I need to make sure you're muted, guys. I'm hearing some background noise. Right. So when you ask, right, it's always you have to be able to relinquish control over the outcome. You can't force a guy to love you in the way you want to be loved. You can ask for it, right? You can desire it, but you can never force the outcome. And the problem with many women, right, is especially when it comes to wanting more love, right, from the man or more commitment, right, is we try to force it. And at that moment, you're leaving the realm of desire, you're entering the realm of tyranny, right? So this is the difficulty, is to ask while at the same time relinquishing control over when, how, if the man will respond, right? But this is what Ruth does. Spread your wings over me, for you are a redeemer. And then she stops talking. She doesn't say, these are my rights, and you need to do this, and you owe me, right? And this, right? She just expresses and then stops. And now she has created a space for the man to decide if, when, how, what to do, right? And now the man actually has the space to express his love. Remember, men love by doing. If you don't give them space to do, or the agency to do what they want to do in the time they choose, in the way they choose, you're blocking the heart, right? The worst, I mean, if you want to block a man's heart, here's the key. have an expectation. Expect him to love you in this way. Expect him to commit to you at this time. There's nothing more blocking for a man than to feel the weight of your expectations. Are you following me on this point? Put your hand if you're seeing what I'm saying. Okay, great. Okay, third, it's always open-ended. A desire, true desire, is always open-ended. Yes, I love what you're saying, Staich, in the chat. Love is a privilege, right? It's not a right. Okay, open-ended. Okay, open-ended means this. This is how she, basically, I think this is the same as the expectation. I'm just realizing this. Oh yeah, this is actually, open-ended means you're willing to wait and give the man the space. This is connected to the second one. I should have regrouped them, right? You're giving them the space to fulfill the desire in their timeline, in their way, in their, when they choose to, right? So this is, and very often, by the way, this is the ability to be graceful to the process that very often our desires necessitate. In other words, if you're really asking for something important, most likely, like for example, Ruth is asking for marriage, right? It might take a certain amount of time for the man to process and to get to that point. And very often we want an immediate answer, right? We want the man immediately to be like, yes, baby, right away, right? Let me run after your desire. Like we have this idea of Prince Charming is going to immediately pop into action. No, some men, they hear your desire and it's like, that's going to take a change. They will need to shift something in order to accomplish that desire. And that shift takes time, right? So to be graceful for the man's process as they process your request, right? So that one I think belongs to number 2. This is the third one, the most important. A desire is always audacious. It is always over the top. In other words, and this is where a lot of women, a lot of us, we miss again the mark, right? We don't think the man can fulfill that expectation, so we don't ask. How many of us, we have this deep desire and we know, nah, I can't ask him that, he can't do it, right? And so we have this scenario in our head. He can't do it. He's never going to change. He's incapable. He's stupid. He's limited. He's immature, right? And we have all of this view that he can't do it, so we don't even ask, right? I mean, look at what Ruth is asking. Look at the magnitude. She's saying, she's coming. First of all, she's a Moabite. She's nobody, okay? Nobody. She comes to this man who is one of the pillars of society. This is not just anybody. This is Boaz, right? He's a pillar in society. Not only does she ask, she was supposed to just, maybe she could ask, can you buy the land for us? That would be okay. She's not only asking that, she's saying, buy the land. I mean, she's not saying, actually, she's not specific, right? And this is what's interesting. She's not specific, right? But basically what she's implying is marriage, land, everything, right? She's asking for everything. She's not, in other words, she's not keeping her request small. She's over the top in her request. And this is an invitation for us women, right? When you have a huge desire for the relationship, maybe it's a desire to get to the next level. Maybe it's a desire to get married. Maybe it's a desire to have a child. Maybe it's a desire, right, to have more money. Maybe it's a desire just to go on vacation. But you're always feeling deep down, maybe the man's not ready, maybe he can't do it, and you don't ask. We're learning here from Ruth is ask, and then let it be, right? But don't be afraid to ask. Because if you're just thinking he's never going to change or he can't handle my desires, then you are bringing the relationship back to a level of stagnation. You're not moving the relationship forward. You're betraying your vision and you're keeping the man in a stagnant, right? You're not awakening in him everything that he could be, right? So now going back to what Alim has been saying in the chat that I noticed, right? This is a blend. The key here in Ruth is a blend between profound humility, right? She doesn't complain, she doesn't expect, she doesn't get impatient, and audacity, right? Or chutzpah in the Yiddish, right? So this is a blend of humility and audacity. This is the key to her power. She's both humble, right? She doesn't complain, she doesn't expect, she doesn't get impatient, she doesn't push, she doesn't pressure. This is humility. But at the same time, she's asking something over the top, right? This is audacious. In fact, she's asking in the imperative, spread your coat over me for you. He's not even saying, I would love if you would spread your coat over me, not just spread your wings over me, right? And so this is where we go back to what we learned in Genesis, right? The kenegdo, right? Remember, kenegdo alim. Tell us what you mean when you talk about, when you refer to the kenegdo in the chat.
I mean, I saw that you were even like using like the same wording when describing I don't know if I'm saying it right, kenegdo, and I guess like the kene, or like to be with the man, is the humility that she's expressing towards Boaz, but the negado is when she's demanding something of him, and she's doing it in a blend that is as God intended for Eve.
Yes, excellent, right? It's a cocktail of strength and vulnerability, right? This is the key to Ruth's amazing transformative power, right? She's able to be humble, vulnerable. She acknowledges her weakness, and she's able to be naked, audacious, asking for something over the top, right? That's the cocktail that she succeeds in doing, and which profoundly moves Boaz, right? This is why Boaz gets up and tells her, and we'll talk about this next time, I will do for you all that you ask, right? This is how she got him to say that, right? This is not the strategy, but the skill, right? This is the skills in how to love that we're trying to learn, right? Okay. Great. Okay. I think we can conclude. Any questions? I know some of you have to go, but any questions? I see one question. Maybe I'll take it afterwards, Taich. Anybody else want to say anything before or needs a clarification? Okay, great. All right, next time, please read chapter 4. We will finish, we will look at Boaz next time in great detail. We're going to look at Boaz. We're going to look at what happens to him. We're going to look at both how he becomes another man and how he renews. Now it's his turn to be the Goel, right? To renew Ruth, right? His transformative power also, right? Again, I agree with Stage that the sacred marriage is both have equal roles. The woman rejuvenates the man, but the man also can rejuvenate the woman. And we're going to see this in the next time. And then we'll be done. So chapter 4, reading assignment for next time, for Thursday. So please do a reading assignment on chapter 4. And then we will start the book of Ecclesiastes to take a break from the harem, as I call it, or our goddesses. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.